There comes a point in every healing journey where you realize you've been performing for love, for safety, for survival. But what happens when that performance ends? What's left when you stop being who you think you should be and start becoming who you really are? This episode is about authenticity, not as a buzzword, but as a way back to yourself. The messy, beautiful, powerful truth of you. My name is Michael Perry, and I'm joined by my teacher and mentor, Justin.
What up?
This is the new Ashla Podcast. So today we're going to be diving into authenticity. It's something we talk about a lot on here, and it's one of the most important parts of what it is we seek to accomplish in this temple. So why is authenticity so important, Justin?
Why is it so important? Because it's the foundation for connection and fulfillment and growth. It's really important because it aligns our outer life, everything we do outside of us, and how we act and how we interact and how we live our lives with what's true, our inner truth. That's why it's important. It's really the foundation that all the other things are built upon. Because if you're not authentic, then you're not really doing much.
Yeah. Well, I think so many people don't even realize they're acting inauthentically.
Right.
I mean, as we do this shadow work, as we start to discover ourselves, we start to realize these masks we've worn our whole lives, that they weren't masks to us at the time. They were very much a part of who we were. But it was more who we needed to be.
Right. I was just going to say more like who we need to be at the moment. Yeah. So what is it though? I mean, we talked about it being a buzzword just a second ago, and you said people don't really know that they're being inauthentic. So is it?
Well, I think often when we look at authenticity, especially when we're not sure if we are being authentic, it's looking at the areas of our life where we are molding ourselves to people or situations next to when we're trying to fully express ourselves, our needs, and show up in a way that is in our best interests, regardless of the outcome. And there's a line where that could be bad, but I think those are more the people who are narcissistic or tyrants. But for most people, I think that there is a struggle in finding that line.
There's a struggle because it's hard. It's really hard because it's more than just being honest or real. We hear that. That's probably a bigger buzzword than authenticity, right? Like, hey man, just
Yeah.
keep it real, bro. Keep it real. For us, it's literally the sacred aligning of what's inside, the truth inside, with how we live and how we express and all the things we do. When those things align, that you start to be more authentic. It's about walking in harmony with who you really, really are, who you truly are, and not who others say you should be.
Yeah. That's so well said, though, because again, as you start to realize these masks you wear and as you go through life, you start to realize that a lot of us don't even know how to speak our truth.
Mm-hmm.
I heard this really powerful short a couple months ago that really hit home with me, and it's like, if you're not speaking your truth, then you're still who you used to be. If you're not acting your truth, you're still who you used to be. Because I think many people in the healing community, the spiritual community, they have a lot of great talk, they have a lot of great knowledge on the topic, but wisdom is the application. And so many
You have to
people
apply.
struggle with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can
Well,
know what you need to do, but it
it's
doesn't mean you'll
scary
do it.
sometimes. It's scary to apply that. Speaking your truth and walking your way requires a ton of courage.
Yeah.
You know, you notice like these folks have never seen it before, but you know, when I give you kind of our standard questionnaire for our guests, and one thing on there is, you know, what we call the icebreaker, so that we can introduce our guest and our friend to the larger audience. But one of those questions used to be when we talked about, especially when we used to talk to people who kind of did taboo things or what people would consider odd or strange or bizarre, I would always ask them straight up, do you hide this from other people in your life? Now, of course, they're on a podcast to potentially millions of people, so they're not really hiding at that point, but it's a million strangers. So, you know, are you
Yeah.
open about your path in your life, to your family, to your closest friends? And sometimes it's like, No. Oh, they would massacre me. They would make fun of me. They would do whatever. So it requires a lot of courage. And that's one of the main ingredients to authenticity is just like stop caring what people think, have the courage to, you know, I mean, do your thing.
Yeah. Well, and I
Just
think you brought up a
just
really
doing
good point
this.
here.
Just doing this requires a lot of courage. People don't, I mean, we may make it look easy or whatever. And I've had people say, I've asked them, hey, come on the podcast with me. I think you would be really great. And, you don't have to be like a special guest or anything. Just come on and join us and just chat. Oh, I could never do that. That's crazy. I can't believe you guys do that.
I've run into that myself
Yeah.
already, just being on this for a little bit.
Yeah. So it requires a lot of courage. And, our path teaches that to remove these masks that you're talking about requires courage. Courage is why it's one of the 12 agreements, because it's really important to work ourselves towards true authenticity, to release that need for, like I said, approval or acceptance. When you got to have a little bit of courage. When you start working that way, you start to live in alignment with what your heart says and your values and your spirit and whatever else.
No, it's so true, though. One thing I really like that you brought up is, I mean, you look at how we interact with our friends and family. I see so many people that feel strangers to the people in their lives.
Mm,
And a lot of people attribute to just being different. No one understands me,
right.
all these different things. And it's like, you got to give people the opportunity to understand you. I was guilty of that for many years until I realized self-expression is one of the best ways to create connection. And that was
Hmm.
luckily something I found before I ever got on this path. And that's one of the reasons I'm so good with people. I mean,
Well,
you
what's
want to
cool?
show people,
What's cool about that is, so let's take our example. You know, I was a law enforcement guy. I'd stop in at the come and go. Those don't exist anymore, which is kind of sad. Stupid
yeah,
Maverick.
it's a gas station for those who don't know what that is.
Yeah. So, I had no problem. But at the beginning, we were just friendly small talk. Hey, how's it going out there? Hey, stay safe. Hey, thanks for the free coffee or whatever. And but I never ever hid any of this weird, bizarre, whatever people want to, would call it. And it actually kind of opened you up, and then you started talking about it, and then we started building a friendship around that.
Yeah,
Pop in, and we skip the bull crap. How's the weather? We would go right into this. So one of the things, like you said, once you learn to kind of speak and present and get that stuff out of your heart and giving people a chance to either accept you or reject you, you actually start finding your people. That's what happens.
yeah,
Not always, and more than not, people are still too closed off because of religion or societal conditioning, whatever.
past traumas, whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
But if you do it enough times, you'll start to find your people. So yeah, it's what you said. It's really important to just
yeah.
put yourself out there.
Well, it's like, I mean, back in high school, I was so antisocial that I had my special ed teacher come up to me and say, we're worried we're going to have to send you to a home after high school because we're worried you can't function as a normal person.
Oh boy.
And I could not, I would mumble, I could not express myself at all. I struggled so much because I always felt judged everywhere I went.
Mm,
And it took my teacher telling me that to have that aha moment of I can't keep living like this. And
right.
again, we talk about practice. One of the things I started doing is I would go to the mall. I'd go to the mall and I'd force myself to ask 10 random people, what's the time? Started with that, then it started making conversation.
Oh, that's
And
clever.
slowly
That's
yeah,
clever,
and
man.
slowly
Yeah.
after that,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it
clever.
helped me. I mean, would you ever guess I was antisocial? I'm one of the biggest social butterflies I know.
No, no, I never would have ever guessed that.
And it took that practice, it took that awareness, and then doing something about it. And I'm going to tell you, going to the mall and talking to 10 random people, especially even just asking the time, was horrific to me. I would tremble. I would have to catch myself mumbling because I was working on speech and talking to random people. But over time, it got better. It got more fluent. I felt more confident in it because confidence like that is usually needs to be built through trial and error and getting out of your shell.
So what you were just saying reminds me of a short that we just posted from content from way back when, during the KOA days. And we were talking about fear in one form or the other. And in this short, I read a note that a listener had sent me and asked me to read on the air. And I've actually had people hitting me up about this short and thanking me for the insight. Now, most of the insight that I'm going to share with you guys is not me. Just remember that. You'll hear me say I'm reading from something. So let's just play it and see what you guys think.
Me if they could. Fear manifests itself in many ways, but most of the time it is really just an illusion to something we've created in our own minds. For instance, I have a fear of people, also known as agoraphobia. Stupid thoughts about people not liking me or thinking badly about me always have a way of sneaking into my mind, sometimes to the point of even ruining relationships. Where did this fear come from? Well, I'm not completely sure, but I have the feeling it has something to do with the way I was treated by certain individuals at a young age in my childhood. Then at that young age, I began to believe it was normal treatment and that all people would eventually treat me in the same hurtful way as those handful of people did. This thought process never went away and continued to grow into a diagnosable fear. Today I understand that this fear is only an illusion. Not everyone can be judged off of a handful of mean people. Not everyone wants to hurt me. I have to remember this on a daily basis. I have to put this fear down every morning and tell myself it's an illusion. It is not reality. And there are people who do love and care about me. Will there be times that my loved ones might hurt me? Of course. No one is perfect. And I can't expect perfection out of anyone, especially being an imperfect person myself. I also tell myself at times I could be hurt by a loved one because they do love me and not because they want to hurt me. Through accepting people as they are, individually, and not as a collective, people versus individual, as I had most of my life, I am also becoming more aware now of people who do and do not intend on causing myself or others harm. I hope to one day be of assistance to others who suffer from the same or similar effects. I want to thank my friend Samra for allowing me to share this with you. Ashla axiom number 1 was when darkness.
So,
Yeah.
I think, that really hits on authenticity too. And it's just
Well, exactly what
synchronicity
we're
that
talking
these
about. Yeah.
things, it's just synchronicity. These things are kind of coming together for us, but that was a long time ago. But wow, what a powerful statement.
Well, it's so true. I know that's where a lot of my social anxiety came from. I was bullied a lot in uh, middle school due to being special ed, moving schools, being the new kid in this whole new terrain. And from that, I always felt inept and ineffective. I struggled with self-esteem on my intelligence for years, and now that's shifted completely because I know where my strengths lie. But it's crazy how much we are conditioned by our experiences.
Yeah.
I read a book a couple months ago called The Courage to Be Disliked, and it goes on one of the
Mm,
other big
that's a great title.
psychologists. Yeah, right? But it was one of the other great psychologists around the time of Young,
Mm,
Adler, and he talks
yeah.
about how all trauma is actually just interpersonal problems. All the issues we have, all the struggles we have, it's all interpersonal.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I
I would
think
agree
there's
with
so
that.
much truth to that
Yeah.
because it's the world outside of us that conditions us. It's trauma's never what happens to us though. It's how we internalize it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. But authenticity for us also, some other things kind of on this path and the things we teach is that, you employ courage and you speak your truth, even when your voice trembles, even when it's hard to get the words out. You live your values, even when others misunderstand you or even don't care to understand you. Honoring your
Yeah.
unique path, even when the world suggests otherwise. Because, for us, when we embody authenticity, our actions, our thoughts, our intentions, all of that reflect our deepest principles, our deepest foundational things. Our relationship deepen. Our lives become more vibrant and joyful, meaningful. And we don't have to carry around that stupid, heavy burden, this big sack of anvils, that burden of pretending. What
Yeah.
I say to everyone and what I said to you and all of my other students, never, ever, ever compromise who you are. Ever. It is very important that you stand strong when it comes to compromising your authentic, true self, especially when it becomes difficult. And it does become difficult. Authenticity is that kind of freedom. It's that quiet strength that comes from knowing who you actually, truly, really are, and then having the courage to live it in all aspects of your life, in your whole being. There was a famous quote, and let's see if you can guess who said it. Sometimes I like to spring these on you.
Yeah, you do.
Because you're a really smart hombre, and I always try to see, can I get him with this one? I wonder. So let's see. A really famous person once said, and that's the hint, they're really, really famous. The truth shall, wow, I can't even get the words out. The truth shall set you free. You know who said that? Jesus. Really famous. Jesus said that.
Was it?
It was Jesus. Who is Jesus Christ? Yes. So, and when you picked this topic today, I immediately went to one singular axiom. Can you guess what axiom I went to for this one?
Truth and trust.
Close. You're close. Truth has no regard for popularity. That's authenticity. And this means the truth doesn't bend, it doesn't compromise or alter itself based on things like approval or acceptance or applause, right? Our truth does not care about that. We should not care about that, because if we do, then we start to chain ourselves to these different things and these different peoples and these different ideas that drag us down. Truth stands apart, stands alone, steady and unchanged, regardless of who agrees with it, supports it, or even sees it. We don't care if they can see it, because we still have to present it. We still have to bring it out from our being. So for us to live by this axiom means having the courage to stand in your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable and misunderstood or unpopular.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's one of the biggest reasons people struggle so much. We're so afraid of offending others, as being seen as weird or off the wall. And realistically, people love that stuff. And the ones that don't are probably not the ones that belong in your life if they don't like what makes you uniquely an oddball.
Or they're there to teach you strength.
So there's this saying out there that you can't meet someone as deeper than they've met themselves. And there is so much truth to this I've learned on this journey. And it's something to ask yourself, whoever's listening to this, is how deeply do I know myself? And in turn, how deeply do people know me from that? Because the more we understand ourselves, the more vulnerable we can be with the people we love, the more people see us for who we truly are, not who we're trying to pretend to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know for me, one of my biggest Achilles heels in relationships was I was the guy who was like, I will take care of everything. I will make everything come together. I have no weakness. I can do anything.
Right.
And that cost me a lot in the end, especially my sanity. Because no one knew what I needed, because I hid that from the world.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be a burden to others.
Right. That's a pretty common.
Yeah. I think so many people struggle with that. Everyone wants to give, and is afraid to, in turn, get reciprocation for that.
Right.
And that's toxic.
Deepak Chopra, and I believe it is in the book The Way of the Wizard. Have you ever read that book?
I have not, but I love his work.
I will lend you that book. I have a really old copy that you'll find my fingerprints in. I've read it and read it and read it. He says in there, I'm paraphrasing, that to receive graciously is just as important to give graciously, because if you deny a person, and I'm not talking about people who have hurt you or whatever, you don't have to take anything from them. But what I'm saying is, if I offer you a gift, let's say you tell me, in confidence, something that's going on in your life, and I have a way to help you. I have a way to get you out of that hole. Let's say your car broke down and you need a couple of grand to fix it, or else it's, Lamborghini all everywhere else. And you live, I know how far away you work from your house. That's really not an option. You might have to take the Mustang or something. For those of you who don't know, in Colorado, we have this thing called the Mustang, and it basically connects the three big cities, Pueblo, Colorado Springs, and Denver. But anyways, if you don't tell me your problems, your troubles, and then allow me to give you a gift of that to help you get things right, then you're denying me the joy of giving. So it's important to be as gracious of a receiver as it is a giver. So, because listen, remember, everything's all flow. We talk about flow because everything's energy. And if you throw up some roadblocks or some walls and not let me flow through there with a gift and the joy of giving and all that stuff, then, you're kind of plugging that up.
Yeah, I mean, a good analogy with what you're saying here is there anything in life you can even comprehend that does not have that has energy or flow to it, water, electricity? Is there anything that exists like that that does not have some form of equivalent exchange?
Not naturally. We're the ones that screw that up. We screw that up all the time, but we as human beings, and even me too, from time to time.
Yeah, the rain comes from evaporated water.
Mm-hmm.
The rivers come from the accumulation of water in lakes and from the rain. All things exist as part of an exchange.
Yeah. And on that note, this is why it's important for us to speak and act in our truth, in our authenticity, despite rejection, despite misunderstanding, or even persecution. Some people do get persecuted for saying the things that you and I are saying now. But we don't do this, again, to seek popularity. We do this to seek alignment with something bigger and deeper than us. And in doing so, we illuminate a path for others so they can follow. We do this so we can be the lighthouse in the fog, right? And help people not follow the path exactly how I walk it or you walk it or how we teach it or whatever, but to just find a path, find themselves, their authenticity, find their purpose, and then walk that path, blaze that trail all the way through to the other edge of the universe. You don't measure.
For those who love to give.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. For those who love to give, I mean, the greatest gift you can give anyone is to be an example.
Right.
I can say I have sacrificed myself for many years for relationships, for people I care about, and I have found the most powerful service I can give anyone is to be a role model, to stand in my values and show others that it's possible, and not only that it's possible, but that it's not perfect. Because I think that's the other place we all get hung up, is we all hold ourselves to these golden standards, these movie-style lives, and we forget we're human. We forget we're not perfect.
Right. Yeah, it's true. And we don't measure, you shouldn't measure your truth by how many people like it or approve of it. And in this day and age, it's all about likes. It's all about shares. It's all about, I'm not going to sit here and bullcrap you guys. We put this stuff out on the internet so that it hopefully gets shared to others. And we have to do that through likes and engagement and all that stuff. But from a personal standpoint, when we're talking about growing into your authenticity, not developing your authenticity, not building your authenticity, but growing into it. It's there already. You just have to kind of grow yourself and find it and get in there. But we measure, like I said, we don't measure this stuff by how many approvals we get. We measure it by how deeply it aligns with our holistic self. The whole self, our values, our principles. And I think I kind of alluded to this earlier, but when popularity guides your truth and your authenticity, well, then your real authenticity will fade. You start to lose yourself. But when you're guided by truth and your in truth, your actions and your authenticity grows, or you grow into it, and it starts to bloom and it starts to come out of you in your words, your actions, your service to others. Really, Michael, you find yourself.
Yeah. And in turn, you can find your purpose through that. I mean, that's what led us to this path. And kind of like what you're saying, as far as not likes and subscribes, we could do reviews on video games or TV shows. We could do what's hip and popular. And we could get a lot more traction and a lot more potential for creating something that's going to be more monetarily successful.
Yes.
But right now,
we're definitely pushing a boulder uphill just because of the stuff we're doing.
Yeah, this is a niche that is such a small subset.
But this what we're doing is the truth. It's coming out of us. So,
It's what we're authentic about.
It's
what we're passionate about because of that authenticity.
Yeah.
So would you say the cost of inauthentic,
The cost.
especially in the terms of like mental health. I mean, you look at how when we start to wear masks, we notice we're drained when we deal with people. You see so many people that struggle with being antisocial, and a lot of it is because they're wearing those masks. It's draining. You deal with depression and anxiety
Mhm.
because you're afraid to be seen. And you feel bad about yourself because you're down on yourself all the time because the only person who knows you is you. And
Yeah.
usually we are our worst enemies. That is the
But
worst best friend to have.
so what are the costs? I don't think you really know yourself if you're doing that. The cost is
Yeah.
you lose you. When we're little kids, most of us, and I'll just say this kind of across the, just as a blanket statement, because I've had kids and I have grandkids, and I watch them, I observe them interacting with the universe, with the things around them and stuff. And at that moment, when they're young and little, they're authentic. They're just doing their thing, right? And we as parents and grandparents or aunts and uncles or whatever, we just get in their way. They're doing their thing. We're just in their damn way all the time. So, and then something happens. We've talked about this in depth on other episodes, but we start to condition, we start to break it down, and we start to teach them how to hide themselves depending on what the situation is or who they're talking to, or they're
Yeah.
different at school than they are at home, and they're different even when they're at a friend's house at a sleepover or something. But we lose ourselves. That's what happens.
Yeah. It's so true. I watched this short a couple weeks ago that really hit a chord with me as far as raising kids. And it was like, if you have a kid who's rebellious, that's a good thing. You want a kid who's going to assert his needs and his worth, who's
Hmm.
going to question when he's told to do something. These are not bad behaviors the kids have.
Yeah.
It's all about your tolerance and temperament to deal with them. But this is not something you want to teach out of them, to a degree at least.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Especially if you've gone through it, which all of us have. Every single one of us have gone through forget. And let's not even talk about all the stuff we forgot for those who believe in what I'm saying from all the other past experiences before childhood in this life. Let's not even, I mean, forgetting all that, just the stuff that we forgot as kids all the way up to where we are now. We've all gone through that. And it's deeply troubling when you find it. Now, I don't know if I've said this very often on the show. Man, these allergies are killing me out here today. I don't know if I've said this on the show or not. I know I've said it to you, and I know I've, of course, said it to Heather and some of my other really close friends, but I was very young. I was still a kid when I just decided to say, you know what, you people are the crazy ones. I'm not doing whatever it is you're doing. And I just kind of kept that. So for me, I still kind of remember it because of the stuff that I had to go through with that mind frame through all the other people that I grew up with who were doing what everybody was saying to do and all that. But we all go through it, and it's deeply troubling once you get to your adulthood. And I mean, some people don't get there until they're in their 60s and they go, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? And it's not your fault.
yeah.
It's not your fault. No one taught you how to stay true to yourself. No one taught you how to reclaim that, remember that, grow back into that.
Yeah. I mean, think about how many people have the midlife crisis, right?
Uh,
For many people, it's people all of a sudden having that realization of, I'm not living a life that is authentic to me.
yeah.
I created this lifestyle, I went to school, or I worked this manufacturing job for
Mm,
15 years. And all of a sudden, it's like, I'm not living a life that's fulfilling. And some people take that pain and that feeling and try to buy things to fill that void, or
yeah.
leave their marriages, or have or whatever they choose to do. But it's very often a cry from your spirit of find alignment, find your truth.
Yeah. Heather will tease me when I get an attitude. She'll ask me if I'm going through a midlife crisis. And I tell her, no, I don't think I'm going to ever go through one of those. I'm good. But it's funny you say that because I was just thinking about these last two very young generations, 18 and 18, maybe we'll say 20 years old and younger. I don't think they're going to go through those midlife crises because they see through the bullshit of the dream. They see
Yeah,
through it,
right?
so I don't think we're going to have those anymore once we cycle through the generations and these last two or the two newest ones. I think they're over it already. I think they've starting to see through, for those of you who aren't in America, but we all know the American dream, get a job for 25 years, get a house, get a car, have 2.5 children or whatever. You know what I mean? So white picket fence and 3.5 dogs or whatever the number is. They're seeing through that, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, I don't
I'm
think
okay
so
with
at
it.
all.
I'm okay with it because they're not going to have later on in life some of these problems. Now they have, and they're going to be the ones really to kind of break through the ice and do something new and set us on a new course. So
Yeah. It's like entrepreneurship, right? How many people even cared to know about that term 20 years ago? I'm not saying there weren't people pursuing that. And it is much more readily available now, the resources to do so. But many people it wasn't even on their radar.
well, the resources are there because it's almost necessary. You can't work a regular
Yeah.
job. You have to have like 6 side hustles too. You
Yeah.
know. And as you said earlier, this is not a side hustle for us because we could be doing more popular content, more popular type content, video games and stuff like that, or even what does Annabella call it? Rage bait. We could make a lot of money doing rage bait. That's where the money is because people are really divided now, and you see a lot of rage bait content on. And
Yeah, you do.
I
I've
my
never heard that term, but God, there is so
yeah,
much rage bait out
it
there.
is, man. I just think about it in that filter. It's like rage bait, like you know. I hate the color purple, and F you if you like yellow or whatever. And people will flip out. They freak out over some really weird stuff. I don't see a
Yeah.
lot of that on my feed because I think I've got my algorithms trained to kind of give me the stuff I like to see, more
Same
positive
here.
stuff, kittens fighting with lightsabers or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's like the old journalism term: if it bleeds, it reads.
Yeah, that's exactly.
People want chaos.
They
People want
do.
chaos. It's what gets their attention, what gets them fired up. And unfortunately, most media out there, especially when you look at influencers, there's so much, not even misinformation as much as exasperations of things that are
Yeah.
happening that create complete rage bait. Like you said, I
Yeah.
love the term. I've never heard it, but it
Yeah.
fits.
Oh, yeah. She'll come up to me every once in a while and say, "Hey, Dad, look at this rage bait," and I'm watching it and I'm like, "Wow!" Now it doesn't it 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 can't grab onto me because I'm just like that's dumb, But but I've had a lot of practice kind of keeping that crap away from me, I guess maybe. But I can see why it
Well, it's because
divides
you don't
people.
engage. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like one of the big epiphanies I've had. We talk about nervous system, right? It's like I used to be so engaged in really dark shows like Game of Thrones. I loved that show so much because of how it made me feel.
Hmm.
And I realized that's a lot of that shadow, right? It's a whole bunch of these emotions that I don't feel safe
Oh
feeling, so
yeah,
I
dude.
watch them played out.
It's the perfect recipe. Sex, murder, like all these primal human things, all wrapped into one show. I think I made it through 3 episodes of that. I'm like, I can't watch this.
Well, and that's the thing I've
I don't
realized
get
as I've
why it's
gone
so
down this
popular,
journey.
but
It's like as I've gone down this journey, I've become more and more detached from movies and television
mhm,
because they no longer excite me in the way they used to because
right.
I now understand what's happening to me.
You're
And it's not that
turning
I
it.
think
You're
about it
turning
like
into
that, but
me,
it's
Michael. You're turning into me.
don't say
Yeah.
that. No, no.
But yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. Yeah, this path does kind of make us a little more stoic, if that's the best word I can think of.
But
Not,
we're not as enticed by how would I phrase it? We're not as corruption. What's the word I'm looking for here? You see what I'm trying to say.
yeah, well, yeah, kind of those things that try to appeal and attract to those lower things, that lower self, that kind of more egoic part, where, as we continue on this path forever and ever, we kind of marry the soul and the ego, and those ankle biters just don't do it. It's just that stuff that's kind of biting
It's
at
no
your
longer
ankle.
relatable.
It just doesn't. Yeah, you're just like, what the hell is that? Get away from me. You know. So and then look, this doesn't make me better than you or anyone else. It just doesn't do it for me. It just doesn't. But if that's your thing, high five.
So we were talking earlier about authenticity in relationships.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what authenticity feels like in a relationship. When we are in a relationship and we are being authentic, And for many of you listening, think to a relationship where you feel most of yourself, where you feel revitalized after spending time with them. Because that's probably the biggest thing for me is when I spend time with people who I can be authentic around,
Hmm.
I don't feel drained afterwards. I feel that much more energized.
Yeah. So they feel like home. When you're in a relationship with someone authentically, you're at home. It doesn't matter where you live. You're always at home. Not because it's easy. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But because it's true. The authenticity is real. Like two people, it offers a space where your whole being can sit and relax and exhale, and your heart can be seen and your voice can be heard without fear of rejection or without having to perform like a circus monkey all the time. And again, we teach that authenticity is, and I had to throw this in here, it's a bridge between souls. I love bridges. It's what transforms interactions, like we talked about earlier. You and I had this mundane, regular old Joe
Conversations.
conversations and interaction. Authenticity turned those into connections, and not just connections, but connections kind of, I'm going to sound dramatic here, like covenants of the heart, the rules and the
It's a well
law
said
of the
phrase, though. I
heart.
think that fits.
Huh?
That fits so well, though.
It does. Because that's how I
What
feel.
is that?
That's what it feels like to me, you know? And like I said, when you find your people, not everybody's for you. Everybody has everybody that comes into your life is either there to teach you something or for you to teach them something, perhaps. You know, that's kind of the cliche thing. But when you can bridge your heart to another, that's authenticity. That's something really special. So
Yeah.
these relationships feel like light. They reveal things. They illuminate and they warm our souls. They're not perfect. You know, don't get it twisted. There's none of this sounds great, but it's not. Nothing's ever perfect, but they're real, and that's what's really
Yeah.
important about this. Again, they're not always easy, but they're safe for the most part. You know, I feel safe when I'm with my people. I don't always feel safe with others. And above all, they allow you to become more you, not less, not the dancing monkey for everybody's entertainment. That's the power of authenticity. That's the gift of true connection.
100%. I mean, the thing is kind of like you're saying, it's not quite like it is when you have these artificial relationships, but it's where you can be who you are in that moment. We can be at 30% and have someone contribute 70%.
Yeah.
In turn, when they're 30%, we can contribute
Right.
70%. It's like when we first started this podcast, I had a week where I got really sick.
Hmm.
And it started as sort of a momentum thing, but it was like within this authenticity, I was able to be like, hey, I'm not feeling too hot today. I don't think I should do this today. And there
Right.
was total understanding there.
Yeah, I
When
want you to be
normally I would
well.
have put a mask on, I would have pushed through it and
Right.
suffered the consequences later.
Well, and these folks would have suffered the consequences too, because people can see through that. You know,
Yeah.
we think we're hiding really well, and we can for a time, but people can see through that. So, yeah. The most important thing during that time was your health. The podcast can wait.
Yeah. No, exactly.
A lot of this stuff can wait.
When one of the other great things about this is when you're used to wearing masks, especially with your intimate relationships,
Hmm.
one of the biggest things you dread is conflict in those relationships.
Yeah, because because you're afraid you're gonna slip.
Yep. And you judge yourself for all the things that you're worried everyone else is going to judge you for. But when you have an
Mhm.
authentic relationship and you can show your flaws,
Yeah,
when you can show your weakness, you won't be judged from that from the people who truly care about you.
that's right.
And from that, you will be able to have conflict resolution where it'll be more discussion and hard conversations than any type of raising of voices or name calling or any of that
Right,
BS.
right. Or like we talked about in the last show, episode 22, all that passive aggressiveness. I do not like that.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, if you're going to call me a blankety blank, just do it. If that's how you feel, I want to hear it. I want to see it. You know, I want you to furrow your brow and go, "You're a blankety blank." And if that's the truth, I can handle it. I would respect you more, right? So instead of this passive aggressive crap, I can't even fake passive aggressive. I tried before. I can't even fake it. It just feels dirty.
Well, and I think when it comes down to it, I mean, we talk often about the two sides, right?
Yeah,
Aggressive people are just aggressive when they're
yeah,
pissed off or they have an issue. Passive people, when they want to lash out at someone, don't know how to do it in the sense of you're a blankety blank.
right,
Instead, it's telling someone else you're a blankety blank,
right,
or or
yeah,
slowly hinting like, how do you feel about blankety blanks?
right,
Because man, it's interesting. You should look into that.
yeah. Yeah, I don't recall a time where I was passive aggressive. It's probably there somewhere in my
Well, I don't
history.
think you're in a passive aggressive type. I think you've been on the other side of the spectrum. So
Right.
instead, it's moments
But I
of,
brought myself, over the years, as I said in that last episode,
oh yeah,
I had to learn to temper it a lot because I just, you know, I absolutely gave zero F's for anything that was outside of my truth or anything like that, which probably was a lot of lack of patience too. Aggressive people, really aggressive people, tend to have zero patience. And I
right.
have patience for certain things like puppies and kittens, but people, man, I had to learn that. I really had to learn that. So, over time, I haven't become passive aggressive, but I've become
Assertive.
assertive. There you go. Yeah.
And that's the way I'm working because I've always been passive. And the issue with being passive is you're too patient.
Right. Yes.
And the issue with too much patience is, and this ties into authenticity.
Yeah.
Patience is not a bad thing, but to understand something is to stand under it. We have boundaries for a reason. The point of boundaries is it creates an expectation.
Yeah.
Here's a line. If you cross it, bad things will happen. It doesn't mean I'm going to retaliate or go crazy. This will show me where you stand in my life. And for passive people, we unfortunately let our boundaries get crossed all the time. And that's what creates that passive aggressive tendency.
Yeah.
And so we're working our way from passivity to assertiveness because
Yeah.
that's really the line we all want to land on, where we can speak our mind, not be enraged and lashed out, nor recoil or hide our truth.
Well, that's why this is important
Yeah.
because it brings you authenticity. True authenticity brings you gifts, and I'll just give you a couple from our teachings and from kind of just life experience. It gives you inner peace and alignment. It helps you when you no longer have to spend all that energy and time playing a role or playing many roles. People do. You start to find inner peace and alignment with that flow that we talked about. Much easier every time. It brings peace because really you're no longer at war with yourself and the whole universe that you're trying to fight against or hide from. You're no longer carrying that heavy burden of pretending or performing or pleasing. Instead, you're really free. You become free to exactly be who you are, fully, unapologetically, truthfully. Deeper, more meaningful relationships. That's kind of the whole point of this episode today. At the center of it is how do we become us so that we can have the best interactions and the best and the most meaningful relationships? Well, this is why it's important because it gives you those deeper, more meaningful relationships. Because when you're authentic, people connect with you. You find your people, not a facade. I can't listen. As we're doing this episode, I can't even imagine what it would be like to pretend to be something for like 3 or 6 months into a romantic relationship. And then all of a sudden you have to, come clean. I can't even imagine. That's got to be the most stressful thing that anybody goes through because then what do? You're 6 months into it. Do you just pretend forever? Or do you, come
Oh man,
clean?
you're hitting on a topic. I could go on a tangent with this.
Well, let's
So in
hear it.
fact, this is
Go
the
on.
this
Go
is
on your
the
tangent.
this is what makes relationships so difficult for beautiful women. Many men try to court women by becoming the idealized man the woman wants.
Mm.
This is something that's been happening for generations and generations
Mm-hmm.
and generations. And what they do is they become that man. And when they finally get the girl they want, then the mask slowly fades away.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why so many people, 6 months in, a year in, and the girl's like, he's not who I married.
He changed.
This isn't who I started. Yeah, he changed. And it's often because and women do this too.
They do.
But this is just, I read a whole study that was done about this
Mm-hmm.
and the courting habits of men. And this is one
Mm-hmm.
of the things that women fell victim to, especially beautiful women. And it's one of the reasons they don't have good discernment of men, is because they either deal with nice guys who aren't really that assertiveness they want, or they deal with the guys who are manipulators because they're not used to what a good man looks like, or they have the
Mm,
aggressors. So it creates this poor dynamic because a good man, and the reason why so many, and this goes for guys too, for good women, one of the reasons people struggle to find good relationships is because a good relationship in authenticity will call you on your crap.
yeah,
And people do not like that.
no.
So they'll either deal with the nice girl or the nice guy who won't call them on their crap, but then
Hmm.
appeases everything, and that's not exciting. Or they'll deal with the jerk or whatever you want to call it because they keep it exciting because they're always acting rebelliously or uninterested.
Right.
And then you have the manipulators that fall in between
Yeah.
where they're becoming that, which also lands sort of in the nice guy, nice girl territory. But finding a good relationship, the reason there's not that many out there is a lot of people aren't ready for a good relationship and what that entails.
Yeah, because they don't really know themselves that well. So, yeah, no, that was great. Authenticity cultivates these relationships that are based on a real understanding, mutual respect, genuine love. Because look, if you can love me through all my flaws and quirks and stuff, there's really nothing left for you to not love at that point. Because and
Yeah.
this also, these relationships that you build, and this isn't just romantic. These are all the relationships we build with people that we keep in our lives. When all this happens, people trust you because your words always match your actions, and they always match the intent of your heart. Another reason why it's important is you start to find freedom from the fear of judgment. You break the chains of approval. They are chains. They are
Yeah.
shackles. You release the fear of what others think. Your inner compass guides you, not the claps and the applauses and the approval and the popularity. It gives you immense freedom. I'm telling you, when you start to work on authenticity, when you start to do your shadow work and you start to shed the facade and you start to really grow into your true self, the amount of freedom and real power that you acquire through those level ups it's hard to describe, because then you start following your action. You actually start following your dreams. You speak your truth
Yeah.
unapologetically, and you walk the talk. You walk your path without apology.
And man, those relationships are just better than anything you can imagine. Most people have at least one person that they can be authentic with.
Hmm.
Imagine that for all your relationships.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. You know,
So how can we start cultivating it?
well, what, for me in our teachings, we always, where I'm going with this, we always start with the self. That's where I always focus, because if you can get yourself right, then everything's right from there.
Yeah.
Because imagine if every person on earth did the shadow work, found their authenticity, found their purpose, found their true grounded purposeful passion and all this good stuff. Imagine what the world would look like. So we have to start. We change the world one person at a time, and that starts with ourselves,
I believe
right?
that's the big dream of society. I think that's the inevitable when society hits its pinnacle of prosperity and peace. It'll be when everyone's not living in chasing material goods or reputation. It's where we're living lives of authenticity, where we're doing what we're passionate about with the people we love,
Yeah.
where we
So
normalize hard conversations and being who we truly are.
so I always say we start by practicing authenticity with ourselves. And as I tell you guys too, but you guys, we are of no good or of no service to anyone else until we get our crap together, right? I've said that to you a million times. I say it to Heather all the time. I say it to anyone else that walks through the doors of our temple. Let's get you right. Let's help you find yourself. Let's help you find this. Because before you can go out there and save the world, you got to get right. You got to get yourself squared away. So before you can be authentic with anyone else, you got to learn how to be authentic with yourself, right? That's
100%.
where it starts. So, like most of our journeys and most of our practices and stuff, the journey here begins inward, because how can you offer truth to the world if you haven't even yet claimed it within yourself? And again, here we teach authenticity with the self is a sacred discipline. It's very, very important. It's one of the most important things
Yeah.
we do. It's the practice of I'm fond of saying turning your eyeballs inside, and looking in your own heart without flinching, because you're gonna find some shady stuff in there. It was some
Yeah.
scary
Well, it's like
stuff.
as you start doing this work, I mean, you'd be amazed how many lies you tell yourself.
Yes,
I mean, that is 100% what creates these masks and why you never knew you even had them, is
the greatest.
because the greatest lie we ever told ourselves or
Yep,
told was the ones we tell
that's
ourselves.
right.
And there's so many of them. We always have a part we play in our own suffering, and it's often when we are in a situation we are suffering, it is because we refuse to look at the path we need to take, the honesty and accountability we need to take in
Yeah,
the situations we have. It's so easy to blame, it's so easy to judge, but in the end it's all deflection from being honest with ourselves.
yeah, yeah. You gotta look into your own heart without flinching, without even blinking. Put toothpicks on your eyelids and hold them open. Something, and you have to say, "This is who I am. This is where I am. This is what I need to see, and this is what I need to heal from, and this is what I need to honor." Practicing
And
this
this isn't
often.
with judgment.
Yes, exactly. And you practice this authenticity with yourself. Understand it's one of the most courageous and loving things you could do for yourself. It is just throwing the doors open into yourself, deep into yourself, step by step. Because when you know yourself truly, deeply, and without any of this illusion, the smoke and mirrors and all that, you begin to live with clarity, and you start speaking naturally with honesty, and you'll love with freedom. Once you're rooted in your own truth, your entire life just shifts into a whole different thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy. And I mean, again, this does take a lot of practice as you begin to uncover these little truths within inside yourself. It is it is a difficult process. One of Justin's favorite books, The Four Agreements. And this is where you'll find a lot of these lies that you have convinced yourself on. You go through things in life and you agree with yourself that this is how life works or this is how
Hmm.
you need to behave. And you don't consciously think of that. Oh, I need to appease these people because that's how I'm going to feel safe. No one thinks that. No one
Yeah,
thinks that.
you were sold a bill of goods as an ignorant young person. It's not your
Yeah.
fault. It's not your fault.
Yeah. As a kid, that's how I found
Mhm.
getting my needs met and feeling validated was, hey, if I do all this work for people, if I'm that good boy, then I'm not going to be judged or have to worry about
Mm,
anger, and then I will have a good life. And that's carried all the way through my adult life. That's my inauthenticity because it's always let me do for others so I
mm,
can feel for myself. Instead of let me do for myself so I can feel for others.
right.
Because there needs to be a line between where we are with people. That's enmeshment, right?
Yep.
So many people live in enmeshed relationships. We talk about unconditional love and attachment. Enmeshment is where we end up blurring the line between ourselves and others and what we need to sacrifice in order to maintain other people or
Yeah.
those relationships. When you're in authenticity, then there is no line. It is this is me, this is you. I accept you for
Hmm.
you, but above all, I accept me for me, and I won't change that for you
Yeah.
unless there's a general reason to. I will hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah. If it's a point of growth for me, I am happy to grow and change beyond whatever I am at that point.
Yeah.
And when I say don't compromise yourself, I don't mean close yourself off from growing and learning. You can learn from
Yeah.
anything. Everything's a teacher. The good stuff, the bad stuff. It's just the lessons are a little more fun here than they are here, but they're lessons nonetheless. So,
Yeah. And that's part of being authentic. When you can have those hard conversations with the people you care about, if someone's messing up, getting into addiction, or
mhm,
taking a bad course in life that you can tell is going to end bad, it's being able to hold that space for you to be like, hey, I noticed this and I'm concerned about you. And
right,
again, it's non judgment, it's not an attack, nor are you not going to love this person anyway.
yeah,
But it's creating that space where you can have those conversations. I've had many times with my fiance where she'll call me out on something. She'll be like, "Hey, I think you're being too nice in this situation." It's like, "No, you're right.
yeah,
You're right. I'm not approaching this from an authentic place. Thank you for what you're telling me." And in turn, I can give that back in our relationship. And it's never taken as a contention point.
Yeah. So I do have some tips for embracing authenticity. And of course, these are all, again, these are inner workings. Things that I teach my students, one shape or one form or the other. The first one is radical self-honesty. Again, you got to start telling yourself the truth, especially when it's uncomfortable. Embrace the suck, right? Is that what they say? I watched a video with Robert Downey Jr. and Mel Gibson where he says, embrace the cat or hug the cactus. Sometimes it's like that, but you need to start telling yourself the truth. I'm tired. I'm afraid. I want something different. I've been pretending. This isn't a self-judgment. None of these, and these are examples, but none of these are self-judgments. It's self-revelation.
Yes.
There's a big difference here. You're not judging and beating the crap out of yourself over and over and over again. You're revealing the truth about what's going on with you. And your mileage may vary with these different things. You can come up with your own, but you got to tell yourself the truth. That's where transformation begins. That's where the alchemy starts to change you. Truth spoken inwardly becomes the foundation for the truth that you're going to live outwardly, right? Of course, we go back to daily stillness and reflection and mindfulness. You can't be authentic if you don't ever stop long enough to hear yourself and to see what you're doing, to notice the triggers and the quirks and maybe the habits that are not good for you. Make space in your day, even if it's just a few minutes. Check in.
One of my favorite books from Deepak Chopra, ironically, I've read it. Probably one of the most read books I have, The 7 Laws of Spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those laws is the law of stillness, and it's taking time. Your mind is constantly trying to spit things up. You need to let it get all that crap out. And you need to go camping for a week. No technology, no one else there. Let your mind do its thing and watch how you find peace after you let your mind go through its cycles and do its thing. I know this year I'm planning on at least taking a 3-day weekend to go camping by myself, to give myself that time to let my mind just decompress and get that out of there. Stillness is so important because we don't give our minds time to breathe. It ends up bottling and it becomes a storm of chaos.
Yeah, it does. And it will sweep you up in it. So when you're in these moments, check in with yourself. Ask yourself questions like, what am I feeling? What am I avoiding? Where in my being am I living out of alignment? This is your time to listen, and it's beneath the noise, it's beneath the roles, it's beneath the performance. Very important to check in. And those are a couple of tips that I would, I'll give you one more that's important, something that I teach you guys too, because it brings out someone will say it'll bring out the darkness. It kind of purifies the corruption within us. All this other conditioning, all this other crap that just really works against us. These kinds of things will kind of purify that. Speak your truth, even to yourself, especially to yourself. Sometimes the hardest person to admit the truth to is you, because the greatest lie ever told is the one we tell ourselves, right? But say it out loud. Go to a place where you can talk to yourself out loud. That's what worked best for me. I'm not okay right now.
Especially if you're not good at emotional processing. I have found if you struggle with anger, one of my favorite things to do is on my drive home, I'll put on some rage music and go to it. Or if there's someone I'm mad at, I will just rage in the car and let that all out. And it's amazing how much relief and decompression that offers.
Right. So, I'm not okay right now is perfectly fine to say to you if it's true. This doesn't feel right. Say that if you need to. And I'm proud.
Say no when you need to.
Yes, I'm proud of who I'm becoming. That's another important one too. This isn't all negative. Call yourself out for the good stuff and the stuff that's not quite so good. Your voice has power. Use it.
Well, I think some other good tips is, when you're going through this, you start to discover these masks. You begin to judge yourself. It's so easy to fall into the trap of, I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I'm like this. We wind up in abusive situations and we stick through it and we're like, why did we stay in that?
Right.
You need to practice self-compassion for who you had to be, for these masks you've had to wear. You must show them compassion for what they did to help you survive. Surround yourself with people who honor your truth, who rejoice in who you authentically are. And notice where you are being authentic and when you're performing, when you're hiding from people. You'll start to notice the sensations in your body when you're being inauthentic because your soul doesn't like that. And
Right.
it'll trigger your nervous system. You'll feel it in your gut or in your heart. And it might be a whisper, but that's enough to let you know. So pay attention to your body. Let authenticity be a practice, not a goal.
Yeah. 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 Sometimes it says, knock it. I wonder what my spirit guides whisper behind my back sometimes.
Yeah, right?
Probably not anything good. Or they're just doing this a lot.
I know I think about that sometimes. They're just like, this guy, he's figuring it out, but god dang it.
Yeah,
They have
he's
that one
stressing
moment,
me
they're
out.
just like,
Yeah.
because we ain't perfect. We have our
No,
moments.
we do. We do. And sometimes I just like to, introduce a drop of chaos and just watch and see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm like a part-time scientist or something. Just a little drop, just
So
just
shall
a
we?
little drop of chaos. Nothing that, kills or maims. Just drop
It
a
is
little bit
fun
in
to
there.
watch what happens. I won't deny I'm the instigator at work. I'm the prankster.
I, we should do a show on that. What's the word I'm looking for?
Archetype?
Archetype. Because, well, we'll get into it if we ever do that show, but we should, because the jokester, the prankster, they carry a lot of spiritual power with them. So,
I think I'd learn a lot from those kind of episodes. I know a little bit about archetypes, but
yeah.
yeah, that'd be a fun thing to
Well,
go
everybody
over.
wants to be the warrior. Everybody wants to be the whatever. But throughout human history, it's been those archetypes that have really, really had some of the most profound
Impact.
impact and effect spiritually. Yeah. So we'll get into that in another show.
So I got an exercise for you guys out there, especially if you are new to authenticity or wanting to start to see just how authentic you are. So,
I noticed that you didn't bring us an affirmation. You want me to do that real quick before you get into your?
oh yeah, no, go
Yeah.
ahead. Hit us with an
Yeah.
affirmation.
Yeah. It's an affirmative prayer. It's a short one, though. I honor the truth that lives within me. I release the need to perform, please, or pretend. I'm safe to be exactly who I am. My inner light is my guide, and I walk in alignment with it. In every breath, I return to myself in truth, in love, in wholeness. So there you go.
Oh, that was a good affirmation right there. On the ball you are, as always.
Well, I try. I'm bringing the 30% today. I'm just, supplementing your 70.
Hey, I appreciate it. So for the exercise, take some time. Go in front of a mirror and look yourself in the eye for 2 minutes. Doesn't mean don't blink, but spend time. Look at yourself. Ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? This is such a profound question because it helps you look at what are the things that I only show myself or my pets.
Right.
If I want to be more
It's a
honest,
damn good question. It is. It's a damn good question.
what parts of myself have I hidden to be accepted? What do I need right now to feel safe being me? Now, these are important questions to ask yourself because it gets to your needs that you might not even know you have. As you begin to discover your authenticity, you begin to discover that you are human, that you have all these perfect imperfections.
Yeah.
And it's through awareness, it's through expression, and it's through connection can we find a balance in our lives with these things,
Mm-hmm.
the good, the bad, and the ugly. I was talking earlier about so many people are antisocial and it's because they don't know how to be authentic. One of the greatest proofs I have to debunk that people are just naturally antisocial. Almost every antisocial person I know who has a pet can be around their pet all the time without any issues. Why is that? Because they can be authentic around their
Yes.
pets. When we are in connections where we are being inauthentic, where we are wearing masks, we feel drained. When we are out in public in groups and we feel like we feel the stares around us or that we need to put on a face in public, that's why it drains us.
Mm-hmm.
But the more we learn to live authentically from who we truly are, the more of these things do not weigh on us anymore. The more we can dance gracefully and endlessly through life without the world draining us of who we are and of our power. For the journalers out there, ask yourself, write down, what are 3 masks I wear? When I feel most like myself, I am funny, goofy, insightful, just to name a couple. Well, if you made it this far, thank you so much for joining us today. With love and gratitude, ad lucem.
Ad lucem.